The saloon in Dead Creek was louder than the wind outside, a mix of boots, laughter, and whiskey breath. In the corner stood a girl who didn't belong, tall, broad-shouldered, her blonde braid thick as rope. Her name was Ingrid Knutson, though most just called her Big Ingrid. She worked when work was hard to find and spoke when silence got too heavy. Tonight, she had only come for warmth, but the men had other plans. "Pick any girl you want," barked the barkeep with a grin full of gaps. "First drink's free if she says yes." Laughter rolled through the room, rough and sharp. They meant to mock her, not woo her. Ingrid straightened, ready to leave when a voice cut through the noise, low, calm, and sure. "Her," said the cowboy. "The one you call too big." The room froze. He was tall, sun-browned, with trail dust still clinging to his coat. His name, whispered like a warning, was Cole Harrow, a man the winter hadn't yet beaten. He stepped closer, eyes steady. "You carried that flour sack off the stage yourself," he said quietly. "And you didn't flinch when the miners fought." "That's enough for me." Ingrid's jaw tightened. "Enough for what?" "A partnership," he replied. "Not a joke. I need someone strong. There's work up north and a storm coming. I can't hold it alone." The laughter died. Even the piano stilled. No one offered her that kind of respect before. Not for beauty, but for strength. She studied him. "You could have picked anyone." "No," Cole said. "I picked right." For the first time that night, Ingrid smiled. Small, uncertain, but real. She took his gloved hand, rough meeting rough. "Then let's see if you can keep up, cowboy." As they stepped into the cold, the saloon door slammed behind them, cutting off the laughter. Snow fell soft on the empty street. Somewhere in the dark, a coyote howled, and the story of two unlikely souls began beneath the bitter, beautiful sky of the American West. The wind was cruel that night, slashing across the plains like it wanted every soul gone from the earth. Ingrid rode behind Cole, her fingers numb, her thoughts tangled. She didn't know what kind of man he was, only that he'd chosen her, not for looks or pity, but for strength. And that was something she hadn't been chosen for before. The moon broke through the clouds as they reached the small line camp. A sod house crouched against a hill, smoke rising weakly from its chimney. Cole dismounted, tying his horse with practiced hands. "It ain't much," he said, "but it's warm and honest. Can't say that for many places out here." Inside, the heat was thin but welcome. Ingrid knelt by the fire, feeding it fresh kindling, her broad hands steady. Cole watched her, quiet, respectful. "You work like someone who's used to doing things alone," he said. "No one else ever volunteered," she replied. Her tone wasn't bitter, just true. He nodded slowly. "I know the feeling." They ate in silence, cornbread gone dry and beans thick with salt. When the wind howled through the cracks, Ingrid spoke again, voice soft. "Why'd you really pick me, Cole Harrow?" He looked into the flames, his jaw tight. "Because of a promise. To a dying man named Bram Knutson, Norwegian, like you. He said if I ever found his daughter, I should make sure she didn't get swallowed by this country." The room went still. Ingrid's spoon clattered against the tin bowl. "My father," she whispered. You knew him?" Cole's gaze met hers. "I did. He saved my life. And before he died, he made me swear I'd find you." The fire popped, and snow hissed against the roof. Ingrid's eyes shone, but no tears fell. "Then you've kept your promise, cowboy. But I'll warn you, I don't plan on being saved." Cole smiled faintly. "Good. Then maybe we'll save each other." Outside, the wind howled again, but this time it sounded almost like a beginning. By morning, the world outside the sod house was white and cruel. Snow hung in drifts high as the fences, and the cattle bawled somewhere in the valley below. Ingrid rose before dawn, her breath a ghost in the cold. She pulled on her father's old coat and stepped outside to feed the stock, her boots sinking deep into the frost. Cole followed her, quiet, his rifle slung over his shoulder. "We'll need to cut through the draw before noon," he said. "The herd's spooked. Something's been circling." She looked at him, frowning. "Wolves?" He nodded. "Big ones. Meaner since the freeze started." They rode out together, Silence between them, but not the uneasy kind. It was the kind of silence that belonged to people who understood work better than words. The wind bit their cheeks as they reached the herd. Cattle bunched tight, eyes rolling white, steam rising from their bodies. The ground was torn up with tracks. "They came close," Ingrid murmured. She dismounted, tracing the paw prints with a gloved hand. "Too close." Cole scanned the ridge. "That's Prentice Ross's doing," he said darkly. "The widow of the Copper Y Ranch doesn't like that I took you. She's got men who'll drive wolves toward my stock just to bleed me dry." Ingrid turned sharply. "She'd do that." "For water?" "For pride," Cole said. "And for what she can't control." They spent the day driving the herd back toward the line camp, fighting snow and fear with every step. By sunset, both were shaking from cold, their hands raw. But when the last steer stumbled into shelter, Ingrid turned to Cole, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. "We did it," she said. "We did," he agreed, meeting her eyes. "You're tougher than most men I've known." She laughed quietly, her breath misting in the air. "Then you've known the wrong kind of men, cowboy." For a moment, under the dying sun, the world felt gentler. But far off on the ridge, a lone wolf lifted its head and howled, a long, hungry sound that promised this peace wouldn't last. The next morning broke red, the kind of dawn that warned of trouble. The wind had calmed, but something else stirred in its place. Cole saddled the horses without a word, his jaw set, his rifle freshly oiled. Ingrid watched him, sensing what he wasn't saying. "You're expecting someone," she said. "Prentice Ross," Cole replied. "The widow's sending him to negotiate water rights. He doesn't come to talk, he comes to take." Ingrid didn't flinch. "Then he'll find we don't scare easy." They rode out to the creek, where the land split like a scar. The water ran thin beneath a sheet of ice, silver as a knife's edge. Cole crouched to check the boundary markers, his breath fogging the air. "This here," he said, "is the last piece that keeps my herd alive." Before he could say more, hoofbeats cracked the silence. 5 riders crested the ridge, led by a man in a black duster and a smile too thin to trust. "Prentice Ross." "Harrow," he called, voice smooth as oil. "You've got something that doesn't belong to you." Cole rose slowly. "You mean the creek? It's mine by law." Prentice's grin widened. "Law don't mean much when winter's this hungry." He nodded to his men. "Burn his claim." One rider swung down, striking a match, but before the flame could touch paper, a rifle cracked. The man's hat flew clean off, the bullet biting into the snow by his boot. Ingrid stood firm behind Cole, her father's old rifle braced against her shoulder. "The next one won't miss," she said, her voice steady as the wind. Prentice's smirk faltered. "You brought her out here to fight?" Cole didn't blink. "I didn't bring her. She came." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Prentice spat into the snow. "This isn't over, Harrow." He turned his horse, the others following like shadows. As they disappeared over the ridge, Ingrid lowered her rifle, her hands trembling only after it was done. Cole looked at her, not as a man looks at a woman, but as one survivor looks at another. "You just made yourself an enemy," he said quietly. She met his gaze. "I've had worse." And as the cold wind picked up again, they both knew the next fight wouldn't just be for land, it would be for their lives. The storm came hard that night, burying the plains beneath white silence. Ingrid and Cole worked side by side, shoring up the roof, bringing the cattle close to shelter. Every gust felt like the earth trying to swallow them whole. By midnight, they were too tired to speak, too cold to feel their own hands. Cole poured the last of the coffee, his eyes heavy but alert. "Prentice won't wait long," he said. "He'll be back when the snow lifts." Ingrid sat across from him, the firelight painting her face in copper and gold. "Then we'll be ready," she said simply. There was no bravado in her tone, only certainty. A long silence stretched. Then Cole spoke again, softer now. "When I found your father, he was already half gone. He kept talking about you. Said the world had never known your worth, but it would." Ingrid stared into the flames, her throat tight. "He always said I'd outlast the wind," she murmured. "I never thought anyone else would believe him." Cole leaned forward, his voice rough. "I do." For a moment, the storm faded behind the quiet between them. There was something unspoken, fragile, a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. But before it could settle, the sound of hooves shattered the peace. Ingrid was on her feet first. Outside, through the swirling snow, torchlight moved. 6 riders, maybe more. Prentice had returned. Cole loaded his rifle. "They're coming for the creek." "Then they'll cross over us first," Ingrid said, lifting her father's gun. What followed was chaos, the roar of rifles, the crack of fire, men shouting in the dark. Snow turned red where it fell over the frozen earth. Cole fought, like a man who had nothing left to lose, and Ingrid like a woman who finally had something worth protecting. When it was over, the night went still. Prentice's men scattered. The creek still ran, unclaimed. Cole leaned against the fence post, bleeding but smiling. "We held it," he whispered. Ingrid knelt beside him, pressing her hand over the wound. "We did." And when the first light of dawn broke over the valley, melting the frost in slow gold waves, Cole looked at her, really looked, and said quietly, "I didn't just find a partner out here. I found my home." Ingrid's hand tightened in his. "Then you chose right, cowboy." The wind softened, the snow eased, and for the first time in years, spring felt close enough to touch.